If you like our content, we'd appreciate if you'd like, subscribe, and get notifications. Help us extend our reach by sharing our video content. And if you want to help us beat the algorithm, also leave us a comment on some of our videos.
What is up, fam of Liberty? I have as our special guest with admin Doug and
I'm taking
tonight.
over. Oh, you're back. Sorry.
We have with us Angry Ginger, who you can only tell is a ginger because of the beard.
That's it. That's all I got left.
They've driven us to lose our fucking hair.
Exactly.
What is up, Angry Ginger?
Nothing much, man. Nothing much.
How are you,
Thanks
my
for having
friend?
me.
What's going on?
Doing good.
How are
Doing
you
good.
doing, Doug?
Now we have it. I'm all right. How are you, sir? Or
Oh,
sorry,
I can't complain. Don't call me sir.
Don't
I
call
sham
me,
for
sir.
a
I
living.
work for a living.
So, Angry
All right.
Ginger, tell us about yourself.
Yeah, I mean, I started doing YouTube stuff probably about 2 years ago. That sounds kind of freaky, right? I started doing YouTube stuff. Started doing YouTube.
I'm a fan. We got feather stuff, bathroom stuff, YouTube
Yeah.
stuff. You know,
Pornhub stuff.
Every once in a while, the subs ask if I'm gonna do OnlyFans. That's the only other way to determine whether or not I'm a ginger.
There you go.
when I get the MAGA trolls in the comments, they'll say you're not a ginger. I'll tell you what. I'll send you a picture of my balls for confirmation.
Here's a Panamanian sweat toad in the live.
Oh, my son has my snare. I was gonna give it the pop.
But don't. Yeah, so I started doing YouTube stuff probably about 2 years ago when all the Jordan Klepper having interviews with MAGA people saying things like Biden's a skin suit and JFK Jr. was going to come back from the dead, and you know, all the crazy conspiracy theory stuff was going around, and I didn't probably take it seriously enough at that time, so I started doing reaction videos and just kind of having a laugh. I didn't think it was something that would be anything, to be honest with you. I thought, this was when Biden was back in office, so I thought, we've seen the last of this. And over the time, some people they like the laughs, they like having a good time, and kind of. I thought for sure they were understanding exactly how crazy this stuff was, but apparently 50% of this country wasn't watching my channel. At the end of the day, we watched those videos, and it kind of turned into a little something more than that with everything that's going on. So now I do a podcast as well called Progressive Matters: Education Through Conversation. So most of the books that are back here, Red Scare from Clay Risen of the New York Times, I interviewed him. Just Action from Leah Rothstein, who talks about housing segregation and redlining and, all of that stuff. I interview her. Ronald Gruner, the COVID Wars book behind me as well. I interviewed him as well. So, yeah, that's kind of what we do nowadays is try to, bring to light a lot of the crazy stuff that's still going on in MAGA, but also try to also help people become a little more educated to the subjects that we like to cover as well.
Outstanding.
I like that.
I just want to say, I fucking wish that JFK Jr. had come back. Then maybe we wouldn't be stuck with RFK.
Yeah, right? Or JD Vance, maybe, He could have took both those jobs. Pope would still be alive.
If JFK Jr. just came back, that means all things are on the table.
Yeah.
Anything can happen. We can hope for anything at that point.
Man, I'm telling you, I thought that was all just jokes, but these people believe that stuff, man.
Yeah.
Well,
Progressive Matters is it?
Go ahead.
No, you go first.
I
think you might have had it. Got a delay.
I was going to say Progressive Matters. Speaking of those people that you've interviewed, that's written those books, is there any insight that they can give?
Yeah.
The absolute buffoonery, the gullibility of these people. Why? How? I mean,
I think it goes back to the Red Scare. I think a lot of it goes back to the Red Scare. I mean, there's a real connection between Joseph McCarthy and Donald Trump. And, anybody that remembers what the Red Scare was about, it was very much about, calling into question people's alliances to the United States of America. And at that time, for sure there was some things that could be questioned and were legitimately questioned as to, we did have people that were spying for, Russia after World War II and during the Cold War. And, just like today, there are some things that are, problems with our economy, problems with, where we're at as a nation and, whether or not the future of America being in debt is important to middle-class people. There's lots of things for people to be concerned about, but the way that Joseph McCarthy played off the fears of the American people, and that allowed him to, kind of consolidate power and do things unquestioned, and put everyday average Americans on trial and convict them with either no evidence or to absolutely destroy their lives through blacklisting. But the Joseph McCarthy to Donald Trump connection is clear. You have Joseph McCarthy, then you have Roy Cohn. Roy Cohn was Joseph McCarthy's his best buddy, his dude during all the trials. And then you have Roy Cohn connecting to Donald Trump when Donald Trump was still new money in New York City, when nobody wanted Donald Trump in their friend circle. So Donald Trump, when he came to New York with his family and, they built their wealth, they weren't accepted into the Billionaire Boys Club. They weren't accepted by all these old money New York people. And Roy Cohn was really the person who helped Donald Trump get into those circles. And he even mentored or taught Roger Stone, who obviously is Donald Trump's one of his best friends and one of his personal lawyers. When you talk about like what connects and whether or not these authors can, say anything about like what's going on now and how people became like they are now, you can look directly at the Red Scare and you see people that turned on each other, that said to, their friends that they couldn't defend them because they're worried about being tainted by the potential of being seen as a communist. I say it now is like the Epstein files could possibly be something along that same, mentality, that if you were to say, if Donald Trump chose to say, I know who's on that list, I'm just going to tell you who they are. I'm not going to provide evidence. I'm not going to, we're the moment the first person that goes up there that he goes, and I saw this in a Twitter comment. I saw when Kash Patel and Dan Bongo Bongino became the FBI guys. He said, "Don't worry, we're going to do some work." And one of the first Twitter comments I saw, he said, "This dude said, we're not worried about seeing the files anymore. We want to see some arrests." And that's Red Scare. That is, we don't care anymore to see the evidence. We want to see results. And I can tell you this, I know somebody's name that was on there multiple times, and he happens to be the president of the United States of America. I know somebody that's name appears right along Epstein's name in the Katie Johnson files in Florida, with some real crazy stuff being testified to. And I can tell you this, that name's not going to get mentioned. None of these people, Pete Hegseth or, any of these people that he loves that are in his inner circle, none of those people are going to be part of those files. But the people that will be, and this is going to come as a surprise to some of those people on the right, is they're going to need probably a sacrificial lamb or two. So you're going to look over there at Caitlyn Jenner. What better way to say, hey, look at us. We're not lying to you. We gave you one of ours. You look at George Santos, it's somebody in the LGBT community. So I think that when you look at how gullible people were during the Red Scare, how easily controlled through fear, specifically fear of the other, you can definitely see where there are connections between the Red Scare and what we're going through today. And I do believe it's cyclical. I believe this is something that has been happening in our society for a very long time.
That is exactly why people need to be outraged about due process.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Stephen Miller made a comment or a tweet or whatever fucking official communications they call official now. Basically saying he's like, all these liberals talking about due process, where were they for the January 6th insurrectionists? They didn't get, due process. It's like, bro, I know you know what fucking due process is, you dumb motherfucker.
Mm-hmm.
You fucking Pee Wee Himmler looking sumbitch.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the thing, is they're banking on all of their rube followers not knowing what due process is. And the ones who do know what it is are just like, I'm not going to repeat what he said anyway because most of that fits my observations.
Mm-hmm.
They're just, fuck due process. Due process is a lib thing now. It's like empathy. Empathy and due process can go fuck itself. Let's start shooting people. That's what they want.
I think the official way that they release information now is in signal chats.
New phone. Who this?
Yeah. You got Pete Hegseth, his brother, his wife, probably his mistress on there too.
And
if I were related to Pete Hegseth or had any kind of relationship with Pete Hegseth, and I had done any kind of shit, whether it was me and Pete Hegseth stole this dude's lunch money in 5th grade, or I watched Pete Hegseth give a hooker whatever, I would be like, let me just delete this sumbitch from my entire life. There no way on God's green earth would I ever. I would be like, I would immediately start distancing myself. Even if he was in my D&D group and was supposed to come over, I'd be like, no more. You're out. They voted you off the island.
Unfriend me. Block, please.
Don't care if you're the party's heel bot. Get the fuck out.
Yeah. And when you talk about due process, that's something that, they didn't need at one point during the Red Scare. It was just being called up in front of those committees. Even if you didn't go to prison, didn't go to jail, you ended up on blacklists, And, regardless of how you feel about Israel and Hamas, that conflict, there's that Canary Mission website, and that's a blacklist. It's, this is where Khalil Mahmoud and the girl from the Tufts University were pulled off of that website. It's a website where they take and they distribute pretty much doxing information of these people's personal, their Facebook, their address if they can find it, what schools they attend. And both, like I said, Khalil and the girl from the Tufts University, where she was snatched off the street, both of those people were featured on that website. And I believe it's a pro-Israel website. And what they put on there is people that have protested, people that have written articles, people that have spoken out. And for people that that may be pro-Israel, they'll say, oh, well, those people, they deserve what they get, they're enemies to America, whatever it is. They need to realize, that's how it starts. It starts by a person getting called up. That was the Red Scare. The first girl that got called up She went up there and she said, look, I got nothing to hide. I'll tell you. Yes, I've been to a communist party. This is America. We're allowed to have these beliefs if we want to. We're not allowed to subvert the government. We're not allowed to be treasonous, but we are allowed to have differences of opinions on how the government should be ran. And she thought, oh, no big deal. Well, that girl, she was one of the first people to go to prison. And, that enough people were like, well, she shouldn't have said that. Oh, well, I don't agree with communism. Well, that's the same thing. Slowly it made its way into who Joseph McCarthy did and didn't like. And when you talk about the Red Scare, too, you're also talking about Peter Thiel, right? Peter Thiel owns Palantir. Palantir is a huge company that has contracts across the government. I mean, they work with the Marines, the Army, they work with Wendy's, apparently. But they sell their services and they create algorithms and they find people's personal information and use it. It's very there's a parallel to be drawn between what Palantir is doing right now and J. Edgar Hoover during the Red Scare. So when somebody was accused of communism, J. Edgar Hoover would send 5-6 FBI agents to their apartment building, and this FBI agent wouldn't just get information on the person that was accused of it. He'd go door to door knocking, and they would get the personal information of everybody in that apartment complex, everybody that person knew, everybody that person had been around. So eventually, obviously, J. Edgar Hoover had a library of data on these people. Well, now you've got Facebook, you've got X, you've got Instagram, Snapchat. I mean, the list goes on of all these places we put our personal information, and Palantir goes out and gets that information and keeps it in one solid place for them to be able to find. So, like I said, it starts by saying like, oh, well, I didn't agree with these pro-Palestinian people's beliefs. So, whatever happens to them, I don't really care. But then it's next when you post a meme that you think is funny, then it's next after that. It's you were caught having a conversation on your mic. That's me.
Remember Cambridge Analytics? Mm-hmm. That whole big kerfuffle. They called in Mark Zuckerberg to go testify. For those that don't remember, Cambridge Analytics is the company that was behind those stupid apps that you would install on Facebook where it's like, take this test and it's like, how much of what's your favorite role-playing class, or what, answer these 5 questions so we can tell what nationality you are, or shit like that. And people would be like, I'm going to take this test. And then they would click the button to share it to their friends list, to their newsfeed. And then all their friends are like, oh, I'm going to take this test too. Mm-hmm. So they're taking the Star Trek quiz and the Firefly quiz and the what kind of unicorn would you be quiz, My Little Pony shit like that. And they're answering questions like, where were you born? Who's your parents' names? Are you white? Are you black? Are you Hispanic? Blah, blah, blah. What's your sign? And they're just answering all these innocuous questions. Meanwhile, Cambridge Analytics is back there like,
yeah, I need all of that.
And they got sued.
1824 Rockaway
knew
Road.
that shit.
Oh, yeah.
And so Palantir is like the new Cambridge Analytics.
Yep. And they have contracts with the government now. And Elon Musk, I don't know. Do you guys know anything about Curtis Yarvin?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. We've had that.
Oh, good. All right. You guys have covered that. Okay. Yeah. So when you talk about Peter Thiel and Palantir, you're talking about connections to Curtis Yarvin. So have you guys seen that Butterfly? What is it? Butterfly Revolution article he wrote in April 7th, 2022? No. So on his Substack, on Curtis Yarvin's Substack, it's called The Gray Mirrors is Substack, and I believe the article is called The Butterfly Revolution. He wrote that article April 7th, 2022. This was when Donald Trump wasn't in office. This is when Donald Trump wasn't running for office. They hadn't determined that they were going to put his ass in jail, so he hadn't determined that he wanted to run yet, right? So he writes in that article, he says, Donald Trump pretty much failed at being a president that could destroy the government, because Curtis Yarvin, of course, wants to burn down the government, release all government employees, and he thinks that America should be ruled by a dictator or a monarch. His famous quote is that America needs to get over its fear of dictatorship. That's where the best things come from. So he wrote in this article that Donald Trump failed at that. Donald Trump did not do what he had hoped he would do just by being Donald Trump and destroy the government. So he goes on to say, this is just a thought experiment. But what if we got Donald Trump back in office, and instead of Donald Trump being the president of the United States, Donald Trump instead elected a CEO to run around and do all of his work for him while he gave speeches and went to events and signed executive orders, and he'd just be the president on TV while the CEO behind the scenes does everything. And lo and behold, here we are. Donald Trump is going to Daytona, going to the Super Bowl, giving speeches, signing executive orders, being at the Easter egg roll, all of those things, while Elon Musk went through our government and took it apart. I mean, the databases that they access, there's a guy who just was a whistleblower just a little bit ago from the National Board of Labor, and he was showing this graph where we don't have information exiting that department. Generally, it just comes in. But there's this huge spike of exiting information.
Yeah, it was like this tall.
Yep. Yeah, you seen it. Yeah. Yeah. So when you talk about all of this stuff, when you're talking about Palantir, like that's the idea. Get in, get everybody's information, have total control. When you talk about Peter Thiel and JD Vance, like their connections to Curtis Yarvin, I mean, there's a lot here that for a person who covered people that were super conspiracy theory, it's a little bit hard for me to like get into like something like this because I don't want to feel like I'm doing the fucking the Always Sunny in Philadelphia, like bro, like it's so look like fucking right here. But to be honest with you, what's that?
Isn't it weird how things are flip-flopped? Like now we're the ones with the conspiracy theories. Now we're the ones that are like piling guns and ammo and telling people you better get ready for some shit.
Yeah, but I think they do it on purpose. I think that's the plan. Is somebody called out Trump the other day. Oh, it's Christopher Titus, and it was Joseph Goebbels, Hitler's dude, right? And he said, either in a book or it was a quote, I can't remember which, but he said, always accuse your enemy of what you are doing. That. And I think that's at the end of the day, when you talk about stealing elections, when you talk about, conspiracy theory and all that stuff, like I think he's like projecting all this shit out there to make it so it's hyper normalized, just like at the end of the Soviet Union, when the Soviet Union collapsed. They were trying to hyper normalize, like going into Lithuania, and you're driving tanks in there to try to take back Lithuania and take away their independence. Everything that they've done to Ukraine, it's like just hyper normalize it. And when people question, like you said earlier, when somebody questions it, and one of the Trump people that actually has a brain and knows what due process is, has literally been on fucking videos saying to people, like, about due process for January 6 people, then they just act like they don't know anything about it. And nobody questions it. Nobody questions that person flip-flopped from saying, we need due process for people, we need free speech from people. Look at what happened with big tech. Before Trump was elected, Trump supporters hated big tech. I used to get endless DMs from people telling me how wrong I was, that BlackRock is taking over the world, big tech CEOs are taking over the world, social media is squashing free speech, and look what they're doing. BlackRock just bought the rights to both ends of the Panama Canal for Donald Trump. So now BlackRock's good? It's crazy.
Note to anyone who is currently from the future. If you have traveled back in time, and I'm not saying that time travel is real. I'm not endorsing it. I'm not saying
out there.
I have a time machine in my bathtub. I'm just just saying. Curtis Yarvin, Roy Cohn, and Peter Thiel. I don't have to say anything else. You know what the mission is. If you have a time machine,
Oh, let's get that taken care of. Okay, so here's a
Happy I
all right. So
I
here's
did
a
wanna-
question. Go ahead. Mine can wait.
Before we get off really that YouTube stuff. Before we change subjects again, I keep looking back at your Red Scare book, and it brought to mind when you mentioned McCarthyism.
Mm-hmm.
When are we going to have that moment? I don't remember if the guy was like a senator or what, but his name was like, his last name was Welch. I can't
He's
remember.
a lawyer.
If he's like
He's a lawyer.
lawyer. Okay. That's right. He was a lawyer being prosecuted or questioned by, like, McCarthy was like, oh, we're going to do this, have this hearing. And he was the guy that they picked. And anyway, that whole thing ended when he got in front of the stand and was like, have you no decency left?
Yep. That's it. And what it was the Army trials, because you know where McCarthy crossed the line, and this is why the Garcia thing that's going on right now, the Abrego Garcia thing, is so important, because there has to be a moment in time where we draw a line and say anything past this is like, I mean, the line for Trump should have been a long fucking time ago.
Right?
Okay.
What line?
Wrong.
Draw
That's what I was
this line.
gonna say.
Oh, let's draw another line. Oh,
new line. We are erasing them and redrawing them because this is crazy, and it does speak a little bit to.
There doesn't have to be a line. That's the key. Is there was one? There's been one. There doesn't have to be one. See, and I want us to make sure that we're using the correct language. Like, I don't want anybody to think that somehow there's going to be something that is below the dirt for this guy, that is too low, that is too high, that American people won't accept. Like, there is examples throughout history to remind us that there doesn't have to be a line. That other people have to come in and literally create that line for you at some point through bombs and napalm, right?
Yep.
That line doesn't have to be there. We have to draw that line and give consent to people who need that permission structure to say, okay, I guess I can be mad at this without my church hating me, without my dad hating me, without my, you know what I mean? Like, it doesn't have to be a line. If you don't draw one, these people will say, yeah, go ahead and deport. They have said, go ahead and deport them. No problem. Go ahead. Are they brown? Yeah. Oh, it's just one white guy. Yeah, he can go. I bet he was doing something wrong anyway. Right? I promise you.
No, you ain't wrong. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, and so when you say that, it's not about the line. It's about what are you saying about who's the person, right? So Welch was a lawyer. These were called the Army trials. And like I was saying, McCarthy stepped over his line by attacking the military. Now, at that time when he attacked the military, he was attacking a young man that had... They had claimed that there was all this rampant communism within the Army. So the Army came out and said, okay, well, let's have a committee. And Eisenhower, who was a solid Army dude, I mean, he loved his Army, was the president at that time, and he was at that point he was like letting McCarthy hang himself, right? Like he was giving him enough rope to take himself out, and so he allowed this Army trial to go on. They brought in Welch, who was this like Southern, total farm boy, but a very, very good orator. And this is something that he knew. He knew this wasn't a trial. No one was going to be convicted. He got up there and he knew this was the court of public opinion. And this is why we're kind of in a bad spot right now, because we've been in the court of public opinion for a long time with Donald Trump. Like,
yeah, we learned what they like. No, this is what they wanted.
This is actually, exactly. So what he did with McCarthy was he set him up in a way. He said he had a guy that was with him, one of his young people that was like his assistants. And that man had been in some way linked to communist leanings earlier in his life, had been to a party, had talked to somebody that was communist, whatever it was. So he knew that would be a problem, and he sent that guy home. And he went to Roy Cohn because Roy Cohn had also, I believe, dodged the draft like Donald Trump. Just was good for the goose, good for the gander. And he said, I'll tell you what, I won't bring that up about you, and you don't bring this up about my guy. All right? Now, McCarthy wasn't part of that conversation. So Cohn agrees. Cohn goes, cool, whatever you want to do. So he gets Cohn up on the stand, and he's kind of giving Cohn the once over about, hey, okay, so do you know these people are communists? Aren't you? Where's your evidence? All these things. And he can tell it's needling Joseph McCarthy because McCarthy's sitting, at the defendant's table. And McCarthy finally loses his shit. And he says to Welch, he goes, well, I know somebody that's a communist, and that would be the man that works for you. And Welch knew he had him. Welch just like smiled, looked over at him, and he goes, we don't need to do that today. And McCarthy, I think we do. And he goes, come on, man. Like, are we going to do this? I'm trying to, your witness is Roy Cohn. Why can't we concentrate on him? And he gets him to a point where he can't help himself. He's just going after this guy. And he says what Big Sarge was saying there. He says, do you have no decency, sir? Have you not gone far enough? Are you going to try to ruin this young man's life? And it's crazy because people actually applauded, like it was like a play, like
everybody's done with your shit. We're like,
and this is here's something. I'll tell you something personally, something that happened to me today. This is that moment that has to happen with Trump. And I was talking to a person today, ex-military. Pretty conservative person. I didn't ask him how he voted, but you could tell he probably voted for Trump. And we were talking about stocks, obviously a very hot topic right now. And I know a bit about stocks, and we were talking about NVIDIA chips, and I was explaining, how they're paying $5.5 billion because Trump went back on what Biden had allowed as far as NVIDIA being able to export these chips, these H2O chips. And he's like, man, it's just like none of this shit makes sense. And I'm like, yeah, that's the biggest thing. I go, even for an investor, if you wanted to invest right now, you can't because you don't know. Nothing he does makes any sense, man. I go, at the end of the day, I can talk about him being racist. I can talk about the weird shit he says about his daughter. I can talk about all the crazy stuff, like Katie Johnson shit. Like, I can bring up all the personal attacks that I want to defame him as being a shitty person. I go, but the most important thing about being a president of the United States is you have to be consistent. You have to be stable. People have to know where you're going with what you're doing. I go, and right now, even the people that like him hate him right now because they're losing money because he's creating such a chaotic and confusing situation. And he looks at me and he goes, you know what made me mad, man? Is he said, if the stock market goes down under a president, that president should be removed. And he goes, and look at what he's doing now, man. And I was like, exactly. And that's, I think, where we need to get to. We ain't ever going to change the mind of cult members. You ain't going to, the people that are like, due process? What's that? Those people, you ain't changing their mind. Yeah, MS-13. Like, you obviously never grew up with gangs, and it shows. Okay, that dude is not MS-13. I grew up around NLR members, skinheads, Peckerwoods. So this is not a choice. I'm not. Okay, I lost this hair, but I grew up around gangs. I'm like, that dude ain't a gang member, And what it comes down to is that we need to convince people like that dude that were like, I don't know, I just thought he was going to be good for the stock market. It's dumb. I don't agree with it. I don't like that that's where he drew his moral line. But that's a dude that potentially will go, you know what? Actually, I did get conned. You need that Welch moment.
So, staying on, since we're still here, staying on the Red Scared idea, you said that they would send out FBI to basically search your entire apartment or your neighborhood or all your connections with friends, right?
Mm-hmm.
Here's where I think we need to make sure that were telling people. The biggest difference between then and now, besides the internet and proliferation of idiocy and lies and all that type of stuff, and the ability to propagandize 24 literal hours a day, and then algorithm yourself into a place where you can never see anything else. Besides that, the other big difference is we now have the brown shirts. We now have the J6ers. We now have the groups that have been planning for 30 years to
the Sturm Abteilung.
Right. Exactly.
They're gonna be like, what?
Right. So there it is. Instead of sending the FBI, instead of having to send troops or police officers, who many of them it seems like are willing to do it anyway, when it all comes down to it, you don't even need that. Like when it comes down to how many more people can we disappear or turn into bad tattooed brown people, or I'm quiet. How many people can we do this to, or when will it stop? I think that the addition of these brown shirts is what really makes the difference in there being a line that's anywhere that can be crossed, because the fear and the proliferation of people who can just do it without having to worry about whether it's legal or whether they're going to get in trouble for it, basically deputized. Have you talked about that? Have you had any ideas on how to deal with that, how to expose that?
Well, I mean, one of the things that we just saw was somebody, with the gentleman that was sitting in his car, and ICE came up and said, "Hey, we're looking for Antonio." He said, "I'm not Antonio." And they said, "Well, you're going to need to leave the car." And he said, "No, I'll sit here until my lawyer gets here," which is, that if there's any advice you can give to any of these people nowadays, that's the advice. Do not do anything without your lawyer present. And of course, that's when the ICE agent broke the window on his car and pulled him out of his car, and then they sent him to, I believe they sent him to Louisiana detention. Do we know where these people go anymore? Probably not. But one of the things about that was that this is like one of the first times that they got to see somebody's face. Like somebody's face got caught on camera. So they shared it around. They said, "All right, let's figure out who this guy is." And from what I saw, most people believed that this was a gentleman. I'm using that term loosely. That gentleman, that was a leader of a militia group that patrols the border, and it's veterans for something, right? And I remember having what was it?
It's Veterans on Patrol was the name that he was allegedly.
Okay. I remember having this conversation pre-election, and I said to this, because I have MAGA guys that come through my chat that like to fight, right? They like to argue with me, and I grew up in a trailer park, so I speak their language. Okay.
Oh hell yeah!
So I said, "All right, man. So you believe they're gonna deport all these people?" And he goes, "Yeah, they're gonna get rid of." What do they believe? They believe there's 40 million immigrants, right? There are 40 million immigrants that came across in the last 3 years. I'm like, okay, so how do you deport 40 million people? And he's like, "We're going to do it." And I go, okay. I go, so the Border Patrol is already understaffed. ICE is already understaffed. I go, and you guys are fighting against Biden, who was trying to actually staff that more. I go, but you guys, you got rid of that. You didn't want that to go through. I go, so how are you going to do that? Statistically speaking, logistically speaking, doesn't make any sense. And he said, "They're going to deputize us." And I was like, at the time I was like, man, that would be stupid. But then I thought about it and I was like, they don't care if an idea is stupid. They don't care if people are harmed. Yeah, it doesn't matter. They don't care. In fact, it's like the stupider, the better, right? Like it does, as long as they don't have to think about it too long or too hard, they're going to go for it. And so this guy getting outed as being part of a militia, like that reminded me of that comment. And I said, damn, man, that is where we're at. Is who knows how many of these ICE agents, who knows how many of these people that are doing all this shit are actual like people that have been trained. And we already know our police don't, do a great job in the first place of getting very well trained to determine gang member affiliation and stuff. It's all just throwing darts. And if you happen to be the wrong color skin, then you just happen to be on that chart. And this is from a man, by the way, my uncle was a Marine and a captain in the California Highway Patrol. So also my nephew was shot and killed by police officers. So I have both sides of this equation, right? Like I've seen bad cops do bad things, and I've had a police officer in my life who was a great person, and I wish everybody was like. But what I can tell you from my experience is that like we lack a lot of training. And, when they get out there and they're trying to determine whether or not somebody's affiliated with a gang or whether or not, potentially they're the person they're even looking for nowadays, there's a lot of mistakes that get made. And now you're going to put that in the hands of fucking Jim Bob? Just some dude off the fucking street that had a hard on for getting rid of immigrants? Go ahead. Sorry.
Here's the deal. When you're talking about that, well, number one, the only good cop is a cop who's willing to snitch on all the bad cops. And if you're not doing that, I'm not with it. I don't care.
There you go.
The other side of that, though, is if you're an ICE agent and you're supposed to be rounding up people and sending them off, there's no need for a mask. I'm here to say I believe the reason why we see masks is simply because that is now the job of all of these people. That's not a job of all of these groups. That has now become the job of these groups that have been in New York, that have been in Washington, in Florida, been everywhere, training, right? And can't wait to get deputized. I don't think they care about the 40 million. I think they care about getting their rocks off, and they finally have been able to do it. We're wearing masks so that we can make sure that anybody who has these type of balls can do it. Anybody who wants to can do it, right? If you get a group of 3 people in a mask, I can show a little something and drag you off, or not show anything and drag you off. And as long as anybody else can say this person is a Mexican, a Cuban, a Venezuelan, it's okay. It's all good. And I only say that because I've seen where people aren't wearing masks to come deport folks. There's a bunch of them. I've seen a whole, and know that lawyer comes or whatever it is, they're all there, and they're still going to take them away if they can. But the abundance of people wearing masks doing this, if you're ICE, you don't need one. That's your job. It's literally your job. I'm scared that all of those people that we've seen in masks getting taken away, all of them, if not the vast majority of them, are literal people not deputized by anybody in a legal sense. Just in the idea that, hey guys, you're all good now. Just put a mask on and call yourself ICE, and we got you. That's my belief. And how far off am I there, you think?
They've had incidents of fake ICE agents, people cosplaying, and they were doing it, varying reasons for doing it, whether it was just to, like, a bunch of dummies that are like, I'm going to make a citizen's arrest, or people who were, getting off on the fantasy of being able to do this, or whatever the reason. But they also, ICE put out a statement basically saying that the assertion that this guy is this other guy from Veterans on Patrol was not correct. So it works both ways. We have people that are actually doing it, and then we have people who are, and to be clear, like, that guy did not look like, and I don't know what an ICE agent looks like anymore. Obviously I'm the most Caucasian of Caucasians.
Me and you both.
I come from a land of people where we wear kilts, and the thistles are knee high. So, but
a black person,
Letty.
Letty. I'm sorry.
Yeah, they have black people in Scotland.
Ahoy!
A couple.
Did you see that? I'm sorry. I'm done.
You know what's wild is people from the United States. They come over to Scotland and they're like, they're like, oh, I'm gonna go to Edinburgh and I'm gonna visit, whatever, and I'm gonna visit every kilt shop on Kilt Lane or whatever. And they get there and all of a sudden they're around actual Scottish people and they're like, why are there black people with Scottish accents? Why are there like Indian, Hispanic, Pakistani looking guys? And it's you want to see some wild shit? And that's like an Indian guy who's like, right, boss? It's like there's a comedian in America. I can't remember his name. I think his name is like Henry. His first name is Henry, I think. He is Asian as fuck. But when he opens his mouth, it removes all doubt that this guy is definitely from some part of like rural Tennessee somewhere.
Oh
yeah. I love it. So it's like seeing in Jamaica. First of all, just to say, being Irish, being Scottish, the languages of both of them, the difference in the dialect is so close to Jamaican patois, it's ridiculous. I think I've said that before, but you literally cannot unhear it once you actually hear it. On the other hand, seeing a white person in Jamaica talking like this and saying, "I'm going on to the store, man. You never know." Say, me been there a long time, Been there a long time.
Like Willie Winblood. You remember Willie Winblood?
I don't know who Billy Winblood.
Willie Winblood was the singer. He was a one-hit wonder in like the very, very, very early '90s, and I think it was like part of a movie soundtrack. But it was like, "Man, you know what really drives me crazy?" And then you see the video, and it's like this white dude with dreadlocks and like the stereotypical Jamaican hat. I think he might have been wearing like a wig that was built into the hat, but it was like one of those macrame knit, like red, yellow, green caps.
Mm-hmm.
Go look that dude up. Oh my god.
I'd have to look it up. Is he faking it obviously, or is he like a?
Let's look it up and see. Let's
like you're like, wait, I don't know if this dude's being racist or not.
Right. But in Jamaica,
that was before cultural appropriation. All right, so Willie Winblood he's from New York. He is a reggae singer.
Okay.
And the song was Whiny Whiny is the name of it. But
we're not talking about Shaggy?
No.
Right.
Apparently he started his career in Jamaica, so he might be, he might have been like.
Okay. So listen, all you gotta do is, if you hang out at the Jamaican airport long enough, you'll see a blonde-haired, blue-eyed kid running around, and his mom saying, "Boy, come back here!" And then he'll say, "Go on about your business, man. I'm trying to go over to my friend's house." And it's like, what? But you're white. It's
and
like,
it was probably Willie Winblood.
White people live everywhere, just like black people live everywhere. They do.
Willie, you get your ass back here, Willie.
Now that would be hilarious. All right, I'm sorry. I don't know why we went off on that tangent. I apologize.
Oh, it's because I said something like, he doesn't look like an ice agent, but I don't know what ice agents look like anymore,
Oh, yes.
And like the picture that they had of him, he had like this hat that had like this stupid looking patch on it.
Yeah.
I don't know what was on the patch, but it looked like something that he got from like Spencer's. Mm-hmm. And then he's got like a beard and everything, which I guess nowadays is commonplace in law enforcement. So I don't know what the fuck I'm talking about, and I freely admit it.
Yeah, and the thing about that dude and even all that stuff is like, So like when I was talking about, I was saying like, I didn't look into this. I didn't see if he was part of that. I didn't see, it's more about the cosplay fantasy. I think whether that guy ends up being actually from a militia or not, it's how many people are emboldened by the idea that they might get to do that. And how they defend it. So I said this about Abrasio Garcia. Obviously, it's, people say, well, he had his wife tried to get a restraining order against him. Oh, he came here illegally, all this stuff. It's like, okay, so no matter whether or not the guy's a bad dude or not, he deserves due process. That's how we determine that. Like, if you bring him back to the country, put him on trial, and that man is found to be a wife beater, a trafficker, he punched old people on the street, like this is all the things that conservatives nowadays are super, like people like the knockout game and stuff. It's like they get these like images, which are crazy, like no doubt, like I agree, like that shit shouldn't be happening. But they get these images of these things happening in their heads and they think they're just happening everywhere all the time. And, if you bring him back and he ends up being one of those people, then I'll say, okay, then, if he's here, part of him being here is that he's supposed to be a good citizen because he wasn't given citizenship. He was given the right to be here without fear of deportation. But that does not mean that if you do bad things while you're here that you get to stay. So if they bring him back, they give him due process, and he's found to be guilty of these crimes that supposedly he has committed, then after that we can talk. Then I don't know about sending him to a goddamn terrorist prison. Like, we might be going a little far, but sure, you want to talk about deporting the dude or whatever. That's on the docket. That's for that to happen. But what I'm trying to say is that me or you might be able to say something like that, where we go, okay, like what happened with Lake and Riley? Everybody, that's their big thing. The Lake and Riley. I'm like, yeah, that guy's a piece of shit. Yeah. Do you think I'm not going to say that? You don't think I'm going to say that guy that murdered, a jogger, somebody's daughter? You don't think I'm going to say that? Of course I'm going to say that. But he doesn't represent immigrants. He doesn't represent brown people. He doesn't represent black people. There are plenty of white people out there that do really. I mean, let's not talk about our history, okay? We want to be very, very careful about judging people for what all of their people, or some of their people, all the people for what some of their people have done. And so it's like a case-by-case basis.
34 felonies.
Like 34 felonies. And at the end of the day, what's really lacking from the other side of this conversation is their ability to do the opposite. And it's, okay, so we bring back Garcia. Garcia comes. They can't prove any of those things. Now are you good with him being let go in America? And they won't do it. They can't do it. They can't bring themselves to say, even though they're 10 toes down saying they just want people to be here and be good citizens and be productive. That's all they're asking. And you go, okay, well, this guy's doing it. And they won't do it. They can't bring, and that's the Donald Trump problem. Joe Rogan, before he went crazy after COVID, right? He said about Donald Trump, he said, he's crazy, he does all this bad shit, but it's crazy the way he can just be accused of something and just let it roll right off his back, like water off a duck's back. And I think that every one of these people are enamored with that here's this guy, you can accuse him of anything, and he never has to admit it. And I think that's what they want.
They found the secret, is what it is. Before Trump, you had to be, as an intelligent human being, you are able to read a room. You're able to understand when you're caught. You're able to actually kind of conceptualize what's happening outside of yourself. And so there's a certain type of thing that you can't do. There's a certain type of thing when somebody shows you a video of you slapping somebody and you say, I didn't mean it. I was out of my gourd. I was drunk, or I was brainwashed. Whatever it is, you knew that there had to be an equal response to the evidence shown. The secret was all you had to be was just a little lower IQ. to never, ever understand or want to understand anything ever outside of your own self. Never ever ask to read, never ever ask to learn, never ever ask, I wonder what that is. I wonder. Never ever say, I wonder. Always fail. And through failing, say, I win. The secret was you had to be an absolute narcissistic imbecile at the same time. And most bad people aren't both. You're a narcissist, but you're still trying to study, right? Or you're an imbecile and it's obvious. But they realize that all you have to do is say, I don't know what you're talking about. I don't know what that is. Everybody knows it. Hey, we saw you yesterday slap that guy. Here's the video. Fake news.
Yep.
It's fake news. Nobody would ever think to do that unless you're a fucking idiot. Like, unless you're a 5-year-old who doesn't understand, or a 1-year-old that doesn't understand object permanence yet, or a fucking idiot. I mean, fucking idiot. Like,
that's fucking so true.
I didn't graduate high school. I mean, it's not like, okay, I didn't graduate high school, idiot. I mean, fucking idiot. Like, beyond idiot. Would look at the cookie, crumbs on his mouth, look to his mom and say, I don't know what you're talking about. Right? Like, that's what they realized was the secret. If I could just be that dumb, if I could just turn off at any point the idea that other people are smart enough to see through my lies and just act like they're not, I can also lie and never ever have to admit anything. And god dang it, they were right. I don't know where they was going with that, but it just came to my mind that they figured out the secret.
It's the playbook. Yeah, it's the playbook of Trump. Yeah, and if they, like you said, nobody ever thought about that. I mean, at the end of the day, what Donald Trump did was, you guys remember, like in the 90s, he was in the wrestling, right? WWE stuff. If you look at that era, it was called the Degeneration era. And that was...
Generation X.
Yep, the X, exactly. And there was a time during that time where it was like rip off the shirts of the girls and fucking they'd kick them in the face. And it was like, yeah, but none of this is really happening, right? Like, so it's almost was prep work for this. And I tell people this, there's a line you can draw from those days of the Degeneration X to the Jerry Springer show, where it was like, we didn't know, are the fights real? Are they real? I can't tell, right? So you had wrestling, can't tell if it's real. Jerry Springer, can't tell if it's real. And even Oprah back then would dabble in some of the occultist people drinking the blood of babies, all that stuff, right? Because that's what people like, that they don't know if it's real or not. And then what happened in the early 2000s was 2chan made its way over from Japan to 4chan here in America. 4chan got out of control, became very like Nazi. People were saying like 50% of the entire 4chan audience were, these white supremacists and stuff, and they ended up going to 8chan. Each one of these places, because 4chan became troll, right? And they were one of the people that spread all the misinformation and conspiracy theories about Hillary Clinton, that even myself, to be honest with you, I was young enough at that time that I was like, oh, like she did this. I know, like, no, I've heard it. And I never did any type of like, let's look into these things, because it seemed so like out of this world. It had to be true. Why would anybody say these things? And what you're saying about people like, only an idiot would sit there and like look dead off in their, their wife's face, with the condom still on and being like, no, I didn't have sex with that woman.
Right.
like, well, hold on. Why do you have a condom on? Oh, I was just checking. I was seeing if it fits. Like
checking the size, baby. Checking the size. Yeah.
Staying prepared. Like only an idiot or an extreme narcissist would believe that they could get away with that. And he he galvanized a group of people that had believed forever that their vote doesn't matter, that they shouldn't vote. They don't. Why would they care about politics? All these politics are boring. And he did that by getting up there and calling Ted Cruz a serial killer. He got up there and called little Mark Rubio whatever, and shit. Even I, like I said, lying Ted Cruz. Even I was like sitting there, like, damn, yeah, this is like the first time I've seen anybody like get up there and just like do this to a person, and it brought in. What's up?
Remember when he talked shit about Ted Cruz's wife to Ted Cruz's face? That would have been it for me.
Yeah.
I would have been like,
I'm coming over the top.
Candidacy is done.
Yeah. Fucking.
Yeah.
You want to talk WWE? I would have been like, grabbing the chair.
Yeah, you don't talk about my wife.
Foot as I'm punching him.
I shit you not. It was like 4 years ago. I'm not supposed to talk about this stuff, but a guy said something about my wife at a wedding, and like two dudes had to get between me and this dude, and all he asked was, this is all he asked. He said, me and this guy had a little bit of confrontation before this, but he said, when your wife gets here, can I talk trash to your wife? And I was like, I had a beer in my hand. I swallowed what was left of it, tossed it aside, and fucking started walking towards dude. And these two dudes were like, no. And I'm like, you say one thing about my wife, like, I'll go to prison. Okay. Most of the people in my family have been, dude. I'm following a cycle. Okay. Like, do not tempt me.
Family tradition.
Your family tradition.
At this point. Yeah, that's absolutely the most revealing thing about this whole timeline is how actually weak and just straight up horse shit Republicans were. Not to say Democrats are all so strong, but the ones that were exposed was all Republicans in office. You realize that, you never ever believed anything. I see. I didn't know. You're so weak. Like, the only reason why you weren't already in the Klan, the only reason why we didn't already have people getting rounded up is only because you thought that you couldn't get away with it. You just didn't think you could actually. Only a fucking idiot would think that they could get away with it. And it turns out,
back to it. Yep.
The idiot is right. We kept you in line by you having to feign some sort of decency and intelligence. And as long as you could feign that, Ted Cruz, you could come from Harvard and seem like you were still decent. You could push the line, push the edge. But when he got on stage and said, I have big hands, so my fucking dick is big. Now what? Everybody on Earth looked around and said,
hold on.
We can do that?
Yeah.
We can do that. Are you serious? I didn't. What have we been doing all this time then? What the fuck have we been doing? If I knew I could just pull my dick out on stage, I would win. I would have won. What happened here? Like, so I think the realization of both how weak and disgusting and absolutely brain dead every Republican in office was that didn't care about anything. Nothing. I mean, absolutely nothing. All of the God and the fucking bullshit and the abortion and the child rape and the women rape and the R word to every single thing that has a whole, all the things we thought that at least mattered to them, we found out absolutely never really did. And that can help us, I think, if we get through this timeline, so that we're not as like glazed over. So, when we look at politicians, so we actually know, like, okay, we know what's going on here. Or, but in the interim, in order to get through this timeline, like, I'm not sure exactly how to snap people out of it, man. I'm not sure how to snap people out of it, because we realize they don't believe in anything. There's no moral excuse. There's no conversation we can have that makes any sense. Like, it's just, I don't even know. I don't know how to go further from that. And I guess every time we have one of these, I'm asking. I'm sure Big Sarge is like, is he about to go ask this damn question again? I'm just trying. There has to be somebody who knows something that can, and everybody has a little thing added to it. But that's the question: is how can you get to somebody who is not in reality? And they're not mentally disabled. It's not like, okay, we can give them a pill or we can give them therapy. They're just not in reality. Going to work, great life, not in reality.
And that, the antidote to ignorance is education, right? Like when you have fear of the other, when you have people. So like I said, I grew up around like skinheads and peckerwoods and all that stuff. And, I grew up, my best friend was half black, so that made it very awkward for me. I didn't understand it because morally, I'm just not that type of person. I don't hate people for the color of their skin, even like religion, all that stuff. Like, I think Dennis Miller, once again, before he had went crazy, had said a long time ago, he goes, why hate people for the color of their skin? There's so many other reasons to hate people. He's like, there's a lot of assholes out there, like you don't need to pick skin color or, disability or something like that to hate them. But I think when you say like, how do you get to somebody that's that like disconnected from reality? I don't think you do. But I think the one thing about that is that the percentage of people that are actually disconnected from reality versus like the other half of the party that are just taking advantage of this situation, those are two different people. And you kind of hit the nail on the head with what you're saying about conservatives is that I said before this election, I said, if Kamala Harris wins, the Republican Party survives and they take with them their conservative values and they get to say to all of their constituents, you see that Donald Trump screwed us once again. We can't keep doing this. We need to go back to the old playbook. But I said, if Kamala Harris loses and Donald Trump wins, then MAGA takes the House and the Republicans are convicted. Yeah, that too. Evicted. Convicted's good too, but we'll see about that. But they get evicted. And if you want to change things, I think you have to look at who these people surround themselves with. And right now, conservatives, Republicans, libertarians, right-leaning people are surrounded by MAGA Republicans that are going, you guys don't know shit. We won. Look at this. You should listen to us. And I think that Donald Trump over the last 2 months has done a pretty good job of proving how wrong that is. It's only been 2 months. And like I said, even in that conversation I had today, that gentleman was definitely like, this sucks. This isn't what I voted for. And I don't think we're trying to change the mind of the cult members. You can't do that. They're too disconnected. When I was doing this, so I'd make fun of these people on stream, right? Like that was part of my whole thing was they'd come into my chat, they would say something, and like I said, I come from a trailer park, so I'm like, oh, if you want to do this, like I love this. I love confrontation. I love I grew up with a bunch of black dudes that we just sit around and cap on each other all the time. I'm like, this is my game. And at first, a lot of these guys would stick around. They would, oh, dude, you're actually pretty cool. You know what? Like most liberals, they won't say this. They get mad if we use certain words. I'm like, no, if you say something I don't like, I'm just gonna tell you you're an idiot. Like I tell them all the time. I'm like, I don't call you a moron because it's a what is it? A pejorative. It's a defined word. It's like you're a moron. You have low IQ. A descriptive. Thank you. A descriptive. Yeah, and they okay, all right. And I tell them I'm like you're here in my chat because your family don't love you anymore. You got no friends. When you go to work, the people dislike you because all you do is talk about Trump. I'm like, so what do? You come to my chat to hang out, and they go like, you're gay, and I'd be like, I'm gay for you. You wanna go out? Like I'll tell you, I'll let you be the bottom. You look like you got big bottom energy, bro. And oh, dude, okay, oh, all right. So they would hang around, and over time, I thought, in my own hubris, I thought I'm reaching these people. They're staying around. They're hanging out in chat. They're listening to me talk about Biden's CHIPS Act, his PACT Act, his Infrastructure Act, his bipartisan gun laws. Like, they're hearing all of these things I talk about. And many of them stayed for a really long time up until the election. A couple of them invited me to the cult. You know, they're like, we got a place for you over here in MAGA. And I'm like, I might be a bald white dude with a beard, but I'm good. Okay?
Not
like,
that dumb, right?
Yeah, I'm good. I know I might look like I might be that guy, but I'm not. And, you know, I thought, man, like, maybe some of these people will change their mind. And I was right about a couple of them, but they weren't the cult members. There were people that came into my chat that were like, I'm a conservative. I don't like Trump. I don't like what he represents. And you know what? I might not like Joe Biden, but I'd rather have 10 more years of Joe Biden than have this. Yeah. Yeah.
They needed permission to be able to vote outside of Republican history that they've had. Yeah. So I think that it always ends up being the case. So even though they love this with you, they loved it for a year or more. Than as soon as Orange Man, 2 cans of spray tan Sam gets voted in, they basically just stop talking. They're gone. They're like, okay, we won. Now, bitch, I'm getting ready to put my mask on and deport some illegals. So, here's the other side of that. Does it make sense to try? Does it make sense to try to talk to them? Or does it make more sense to just try to get more people, to get more left-wingers, to get more people off the couch, or to get, if you want to come up in here and you just need the permission, fine. But I'm not trying to talk to them anymore, because your thing is conversation, right? And I believe I was during my research, I was looking up and I just kept seeing what does it say? Conversation and humor. Your podcast, that's just what it's about. You know, how can we reach through talking? To them, for what? Does it make sense?
Nah, and it doesn't. You're right, because that's what I learned from that, right? And if you guys know, I'm sure you guys know about Jank and his whole idea with TYT, right? Like, we're gonna have beers with these guys, we're gonna sit down with them. I think he fell into the same thing I did, and that's hubris, you know. And Jank is a victim of hubris quite often, in my opinion. And I think that when you feel this like connection to people, you have this hope that you're like, I've reached these people and now they're going to understand what I'm saying. But when you join a cult, like, it doesn't matter how much interaction you have with the outside world. That's not what gets you out. Internal stuff gets you out. Something happening gets you out of the cult. And these people aren't going to learn from what's going on in America today unless they're Latinos for Trump. And then, you know, they might have their wife, their sister, or themselves even deported, right? But even some of those guys, they're like, you know, like, it was a mistake, and I know Trump's trying to do the right thing. There's an IRS agent. He was fired. I don't know why an IRS agent would ever vote for Trump. I'm like, dude, even regular Republicans would have just fired your ass. Like, they don't like the IRS, dude. The IRS comes after billionaires, like after rich people. That's what they're there for. And they asked him, they said, do you think it was a mistake voting for Trump? And he said, no, you know, I kind of still get what he's going for. And, you know, hey, I'll get back on my feet. I'm like, this guy could be homeless on the sidewalk, no shoes, with pneumonia, in a blanket, and someone would be like, Trump put you here. And he'd be like, you know, no, like, this is for America, man. This is, like, he's actually a good dude. It was Biden and Kamala Harris, the commie Kamala, you know, like, so you're not going to reach those people. So I think what you said about the left is the most important part. And I think that when I first started doing this, I would have left-wing people that came into my chat, because left-wing people are so empathetic, right? They come to my chat and they're like, you got to stop making fun of these people. They have mental illness. And I'm like, okay, calm down. And they'd be like, this is ridiculous. I'm going to report your channel, you know? And I'm like, okay, I make the joke. I make the joke because I call them morons all the time, right? I go, I'm just waiting for a left-wing person to come into my chat and be like, my sister's a moron, like, like, and I'll be in other people's chats, and it's where I'm getting to something. I'll be in other people's chats, and I'll see somebody say, the content creator will go, these Trump tards. And people go, we don't talk like that, and I'll never watch this channel again if that's how we're speaking. And I'm like, I like that you have morals. I like that you stand on those morals. But you need to draw a line for yourself where you differentiate who you are as a person from the party, because people represent values, not parties. Okay?
Yeah.
I don't say I'm a Democrat. I don't say I'm a progressive. I don't say that I'm a liberal. I tell people the majority of the things that I believe lean towards the left part of the spectrum. If I had to put myself in any type of party, probably the closest I am is to like Bernie Sanders. So like social Democrat, a democratic socialist. But I don't like to do that, because then people will go, so you believe what's going on in Hamas in Gaza is this, and I'll go, well, hold on. Yeah. I have a little bit more of a nuanced opinion on that, I think. And they go, oh, then you're not a democratic socialist. And I go, okay, are we going to play semantics all day? And that's what the left does.
Are you gatekeeping me?
And the left does, and when we can talk about the Red Scare again. There was a gentleman that was running for president against Truman and against Dewey. And he was the Secretary of Agriculture, and communists, at that time, the Communist Party was an acceptable party, kind of glommed onto him. And they created this real fracture where he said, if I kick these guys out of my party, I'd lose 100,000 votes, but I'd gain 4 million. But he wouldn't do it because the left is always that like, we'll figure it out. We'll figure it out. It's okay. That's the top. Yeah. Meanwhile, the bottom is like attacking each other over the smallest things. And I continue to tell people on the left, I go, you have the same moral values. You want people to be treated fairly regardless of their race. You want people to be, there to not be discrimination. You want UBI. You want universal health care. You want social safety nets. You don't care if people are from a red state or a blue state. You want them all to be taken care of regardless. You go, don't let one small disagreement in a chat where somebody says, well, hey, I support Biden. Somebody goes, Genocide Joe? That's who you're a Genocide Joe guy? Oh, I'll fucking never talk to you again. And that's the fracturing that the left goes through. And when you say, should we be talking to MAGA and trying to convince them not to be cult members, or should we just be looking inwardly at each other and going, hey, let's take it down a notch, man? Well, like, why are you getting this? You believe the same shit I do. We believe we're both pro-choice. We're both anti-discrimination. We both think universal health care is a good idea. But this one thing we disagree on, so it's just fuck me? Like, that doesn't, that's the cohesion that the left lacks. And then the second thing is something else that you're talking about, is the left needs to grow a spine. They need to stand up for themselves. They need to stop pulling the Michelle Obama, we take the high road when they take the low. Because what that does to the people that are down on the bottom, your everyday blue-collar worker that sees that, they go, I don't want to be associated with this person that refuses to defend themselves. What if they don't defend me? Yeah. Why should I vote for a person that won't even stand up for themselves? And I grew up standing up to people. I told you, my best friend was half black. His mom was associated with the Hells Angels, and his dad was killed when he was 5 years old in gang violence. And we grew up around skinheads, they'd ask him, they'd say, like, do you embrace your white side or your black side? They call him an Oreo, all of this shit. We got fist fights all the time, and that's how I grew up, was with this guy saying, we don't let people talk to us like that. If somebody has a problem, then we will handle that. And it don't matter if we get mopped up. It's about standing up for yourself. I grew up with a Mexican dude who taught me how to box. He's a norteño. And he would have me out there when I was like 19 years old, boxing with 16, 17-year-olds. But I learned it didn't matter if I won. It mattered that people saw I had heart, that I was willing to fight. And if this is a problem with our Democrats right now, you get Jasmine Crockett that stands up there and starts saying, hey, I ain't gonna take this shit. And next thing you know, she's being drugged into a room and told she needs to quiet down. Fuck that.
Right.
No, get out there, Jasmine. Do the
That's
work.
horrible.
You know?
That's why
that's my opinion.
Yeah. No, yeah.
I
that's
talk about this in my
get that.
videos, the ones that aren't about Confederates. I'm like, people want their leftist, American lefts, what I call pretty much everybody that's like right of center. People want their American left talking heads, whether it's, you know, journalists, whether it's big name pundits, whether it's small time people like me, or whether it's politicians. They want to see these people angry. They want to see them angry. They don't want to have to be angry. They want their politicians to be the voice of their anger. They want that person to embody the rage that they feel. And they're not getting it. They're getting it in small doses from Jasmine Crockett, like you're saying, or, you know, people like me that fucking shout and swear. And who in the fuck is this backstage?
I decided I liked the IRS story guy, the IRS guy story.
Oh, is that what that is? Is that?
Yeah, please show that. Even if he's down and out and there's nothing left.
I was like, what the fuck is this?
Yeah.
That's
My
real
favorite.
though.
That's
my favorite meme
Yeah.
all time, man.
the
Sorry.
stick and the bicycle wheel thing. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Fucking yeah.
Yeah.
It's like, this is all Joe Biden's fault.
Yeah. And we can't back it up with
I'm
any
sorry.
type of reality. It's and something you just said about you doing your thing, right? And you know, we curse. And like I get people that come on my channel, they're like, you shouldn't curse so much. I'm like, I don't believe in bad words.
Trying to
you know?
intellect.
Yeah, like I don't believe in bad words. I'm like, I don't believe. I'm like, okay, so I'm like, are you a Christian? Yeah, I'm a Christian. I'm like, okay. I go, I'm not religious, but I don't have anything against you for being religious. I'm like, I think you should live your life like Christ, if that's who you choose to live like. Be a good person. Take care of the homeless. Take care of gay people. Take in people that have been domestically abused. Like, be like Christ. And I go,
Their tables.
yeah, exactly. Be like Christ. Flip some tax. Go fuck with some bankers. And I said to them something Bill Burr said. I said, so do you think if I were to go to heaven, right? I get out, I'm in line. Like I'm guess there's gonna be a long ass line, right? So I'm up there, and you think I get all the way up there, and they're like, you were a really good person. You took care of your family. You raised your kids well. You're kind to people. You donated. You volunteered, but you did say fuck a lot. It's like, am I not going? And my mom's right there, or the opposite. You get in, and your mom can't get in because she cursed. Like, it don't make any sense. And I think the majority of people have enough common sense to know that what, even if they go to church and they listen to the preacher and stuff, they have enough common sense to know that that's kind of bullshit. So they want people to be like them. They want to see, and the left has done such a poor job. Chuck Schumer, I think, I don't have anything against Chuck Schumer, but I think that
I do.
I was gonna say, I can talk about a little bit of some things that he's had lately, I think if you want a visual aid to condescension from the left wing party, take one look at Chuck Schumer with his glasses on the end of his goddamn nose, man. Yeah. Just like that, there's like I said, Jasmine Crockett's up there speaking the goddamn truth. AOC's up there speaking the goddamn truth. And standing behind her is Chuck Schumer judging the words she used. And that's what blue-collar America hates about the left-wing party, is that they're afraid that these people that they vote for look down on them. And what they need is they need more people like me, like you, like Jasmine Crockett. People that are just normal ass people that are like, look, I'm not going to preach to you. I'm not going to tell you you're a bad person. If you don't want to do that shit, that's on you. What I'm going to do is I'm going to lead by example. I'm going to go to the soup line because I was homeless at some point. Okay. I'm going to take care of people, and I'm going to stand up against racists because I had to deal with that shit when I was a kid and my best friend was half black. You know, like, I'm going to lead by example. I'm going to use my voice, and you can come with me or you can stand over there. But what we're going to do over here is we're going to treat people right, and you can be part of the party or you can be over there being mad. That's the end of it.
There's another side to that too, which is, besides the obvious fact of being normal and human and relating to the population, there was at least a strategy. Jasmine Crockett didn't always pull out the S word, didn't always say shit. She realized in the past year or so that this is bullshit. That like what she was used to in the courtroom and what she had done being in politics before didn't work. So she changed. Can you imagine that? She realized, just like little Marco and Ted Cruz, and where you were going, right? You realize after a while, like, wait a minute, all of this decorum and all of the extra, right? Whatever it is that you got going on, that you thought was work, that used to work. It used to work. Ginger, and I can call you Ginger.
Oh yeah. Hard R, but that's okay.
Ginger. Let me call you Ginger.
The hard R.
That's all right. If this station hasn't been banned yet, we hasn't been banned yet, all the stuff that Tim's done, we're all right. Yeah. So, Ginger, I for one like to know that people who have graduated college, who have had to be around normal people in courtrooms and in boardrooms, who've had to act decently around the world where cultures are different and not everybody just pulls their dick out on stage like America. I used to like to know that those people can conduct themselves rationally, decently, can control their emotions, can control their speech, and look and act and seem intelligent. So there wasn't a problem there. What happened was Jasmine Crockett and AOC don't go around cussing all day, or maybe they do. Doesn't matter. They wouldn't have if they didn't notice that we're talking to idiots, right? Like at some point they figured it out. They said, "Oh, these people are fucking idiots." I now see that speaking to them as a decent, smart person is the wrong thing to do. And that's my thing is, Schumer, you suck, fine. But tactically, can we change? Do you guys don't see that the tactics have to be changed? Pelosi, appreciate the work you've done, kinda. All I'm saying is, do you not see that if you change tactics, you have a chance? Do you not see the other side is throwing out Nazi symbols and swastikas? You don't see it?
Go ahead.
You don't see that the other side is saying don't get vaccines?
Yeah.
And there's a measles outbreak? Like, what is your decorum? When are we going to decide? It's the strategy. Not just being regular or human. Fine, you're a politician. The one thing you should be able to do is change strategy. Why can't we do that? I have an idea, actually. Why is it so hard to understand that the strategy has to change in order to win, in your opinion? And then I'll give mine.
Well, so many of these people, like I said, they look back towards older politics. They look at the Obama, Clinton, Biden era, okay? And the quote, when they go low, we go high, comes from Michelle Obama. That was a time where Democrats, for the most part, may have been left-leaning, but reached really hard across the aisle to right-wing blue-collar conservatives. So, look, I think Bill Clinton did a good job at some things, and I think he did a bad job at some things. I think Barack Obama was a great president, but I think he did a bad job at some things. I think that Joe Biden had great domestic policy, but some of his foreign policy definitely left a little bit to hope for. And I think that every one of those people, except for Joe Biden, was more progressive than I ever gave him credit for. I set the bar really low for Joe Biden.
He's more progressive. I don't know if people know this. I mean, because of the world we live in, he's more progressive than Barack Obama was.
Yeah. And that's what I was going to say is...
in actual policies.
When you talk about... We talked a little bit earlier about the tech bros, right? Like, so when we talk about the tech bros, that started with the Clinton-Barack Obama. They embraced the Zuckerbergs of the world. They embraced the Elon Musk. When people say, well, Elon used to be left-wing, blah, 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 all this stuff. Yeah, because Barack Obama had an open-door policy for tech bros to come through the door because, for the most part, liberals were very open to AI and tech and all this stuff because they're also open to UBI and stuff like that to make up for that with social safety nets. Joe Biden comes from Scranton, Pennsylvania. He's a blue-collar dude. He didn't want to see the automotive industry go the way of AI. He didn't want to see people every day, steel workers and stuff, losing their job. He wanted unions, and that made him very human. And he tried to do something that does not fit well with where this country wants to go, according to the oligarchs. And that's why you saw this switch over to Donald Trump from these guys. They realized Donald Trump's a stripper. You just stuff dollars in his pockets and he dances for you. And I think when we're talking about the Obamas, the Clintons, and even Biden, because he comes from that era, you're talking about a different type of politics that just doesn't exist anymore. You can't reach across the aisle and get conservatives to vote for a Democrat now. Donald Trump has changed this game, and you can bemoan it. I understand why. Like you said, I like etiquette too. I'm a trailer park ginger that grew up, getting in fistfights with skinheads. But I've also been a manager for over 20 years of my life. And when I go into a meeting, today I was in a meeting with my bosses and my assistant manager, and I'm talking about the health of the company. I don't go, so anyways and shit, this labor percentage is pretty fucking good. I sit down and I go, we're trying to achieve an 11% labor. We're doing very well. We want to see, cart size increase. We want to bring in more transactions. We're going to, raise this and lower that. And, it took me a long time to recognize that I had to be those two people. Like when I'm home, when I'm around my boys, when I'm around my people, I am who I am. But when I'm at work, I'm also a different person that has different responsibilities. So I like etiquette too. But the left wing, the left wing does not understand that this is a time to put away that etiquette. It's no longer to use nice words, or no longer the time to use nice words and be polite, because there's a bully walking around the room right now, chest bumping people, knocking over drinks, and shitting on people. And I'm not talking about your cat. This is
Mikey does fit the bill. Mikey does fit the bill.
He's not knocked over a drink yet.
When you see that guy walking around the room, and I speak from experience with this, what you don't do is just shrink back and let people get fucked with. Instead, you move forward and you get in the way. You stand in that bully's way the next time he comes around the room. And you're going to stand there and you put a shoulder in his chest. And when that dude realizes, oh, wait, this guy isn't going to move, now you're going to call his bluff. Now the question is he bluffing, right? And I'm going to tell you this about the Conservative Party. They are bluffing. Donald Trump ain't hard. Ted Cruz ain't hard. Ain't nobody in that whole realm the man that they claim to be. And I'll tell you this. Jasmine Crockett scares them. AOC scares them. Because that is anathema to them. A woman that would stand up and speak to them the way that she does. But the question is who has her back? Who's going to stand up and say, we ain't gonna you get in her face, you get in mine? Like that's not gonna happen. But if we're a bunch of left-wing people that get mad because she said Governor Hot Wheels, I'll tell you this. You roll up on me as a disabled person and start talking shit about my wife or my daughter, first of all, you likely get your ass beat, okay? Second, you might get rolled off a cliff, okay? Like there is no line for me. I don't care if you're black, white, trans, whatever. If you're talking shit to my people, then you deserve to have shit talk to you. But the left isn't that person. They're like, we got to be so much better about that. We got to take the high ground. Well, guess what? There is no ground too high to keep you out of the effects of this administration. There's no plateau you can stand upon that is too high for this water. It's going to get up there, it's going to swamp you, and it's going to sweep you the fuck away. You and your children. So I think that the left needs to grow a pair, and I think that if we don't listen to the Jasmine Crockett's, if we don't look at what's going on right now with AOC and Bernie Sanders going around this country and pulling 30,000 people in a red fucking county, if we don't look at those people and have their back and stand up for them, I send Jasmine Crockett DMs, but she doesn't. They're safe for work, first of all. But I'm like Jasmine, I know you don't know who I am, but I'll tell you this: just keep speaking, man. Don't let these people pull you down, because that's what they need to hear. The other stuff drowns it out. All the other people that are like, stop, like you're making us look bad. We gotta be the better people. That drowns out all of us that are on here going, no, we got your back. So we got to be louder. We got to be more insistent. We got to make sure that the people that are up there doing that job, that are actually making a difference, hear us. And the people that aren't, the Chuck Schumers of the world, what was it? James Carville, right? Came out the other day and he was mad at David Hogg. He said, oh, this young twerp is trying to, primary our Democratic candidates and, all this. And it's like, you know what? If you ain't listening to your constituents, you should be primaried. You don't get to have that job if you're not doing it. You have to do the job. And if this young man wants to get some people out there that'll do the job, then I'm going to vote for whoever the fuck he puts in there. Because I want somebody that's going to stand up for me. I want somebody that's going to stand up for my daughter, for my wife. I don't want somebody that's paying me lip service and like Kamala's campaign manager that lost the goddamn election said, we got to play between the 45s. They're in your end zone. They're pushing the ball across the end zone over. It is 46-0. And you're at the 45 going, well, if we just make some concessions, the game has changed.
Big Sarge, I was asking that question about why can't they figure out, even if they're too chicken shit to just act like they care about what Jasmine Crockett is saying or how to speak like AOC, even if they're just that weak, why can't they see because of strategy that they need to change, right? And that was the answer. Now,
I don't necessarily want somebody like, Chuck Schumer or Chris, the guy in Connecticut. I can't remember his last name. I know he's Chris Murphy. I don't necessarily want to see, Bernie Sanders or Angus King or Elizabeth Warren. I don't want to necessarily see them get up there and do their best AOC or their best Jasmine Crockett. What I want to see is authenticity, but I also want to see that anger. I want them, and you don't have to get up there and be like, I'm so fucking just, you can be righteously angry, and still, be authentic about it without sounding like. But just, you remember, I keep going back to this example when, 2012, I think it was, Barack Obama, and people were like, why are you not get mad. And like Kanye West was like, well, just one time, go off, go get mad, go off. So toward the end of his, I think it was his last press correspondence dinner or whatever, he had the guy from
The anger translator.
was like his
Yeah.
anger translator. Yeah.
Key and Peele, right? Was it Peele?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. I want to see these people that represent us. I want to see them be angry about the situation that they're in, because they have to keep dealing with idiots like me calling them up and being like, why aren't you doing anything? But also, I want them to represent the voice of the people that voted them into office, regardless of what that platform may have been. Like, you know, John Fetterman playing I'm Blue MAGA or whatever, or Lisa Murkowski is finally like, I'm very scared and intimidated now, even though she continues voting for the dude. Or, you know, AOC representing her people, Jasmine Crockett representing her people. Just be angry. The rest of us are. It boggles my mind. I don't need Elizabeth Warren to be like, listen, motherfucker, but, you know, stop talking on Facebook about it and do something.
Yeah.
Okay, so before I have to leave, man, it was absolutely a pleasure meeting you, the Angry Ginger.
Thanks.
Very, very much so. I hope to stay in contact with you for sure. But before I leave, Big Sarge, my answer to that question, I think that AOC and Jasmine Crockett are doing the same thing that Bernie Sanders is doing. The authenticity, sure, but the idea of why you can say that, it's not the cuss word, or it's not just the anger for sure is there, but it's the idea that you can only talk like that. You can only be that person if you don't have a pack to report to at the end of it. That, I think, is the reason. The reason why Democrats are losing any game that has anything to do with being with being tough on corporations. You lose that game. You know why? Because you're lying and the Republicans aren't. Because they're not. They're telling you, fuck you, I want the corporation.
They had majorities and supermajorities and didn't do shit with it.
Nothing.
They could have overturned Citizens United. They could have done all kinds of stuff. They could have brought in universal basic income, universal health care, because they had the majority. They had a supermajority. They had over the past 30 to 40 years.
Yep. And that's because they're doing that. Obama.
They had a filibuster-proof Senate.
Yep.
And the best they came up with was the plan that was Republican 10 years ago, 10 years before that, right? And not single payer, nowhere close. They come up with a Republican plan from 10 years ago because it means so much to reach across the aisle. No, because they get paid by insurance companies. The thing is, when you can stand up and say, "Hey, I got big hands. Plus, I'm giving all the money to my oil company people, and you're going to love me for the privilege," it sounds a lot better than the person who says, "I'm here for you, and we're going to make sure that your taxes go down." Hey, I'm giving money to the oil company people, right? At that point, you're going to lose. And I think that's the main reason why they fail to switch strategy. That's the main reason why they act like they don't understand what to do in this moment, is because they have to continue to act like they're not getting paid by the same people, when the people they're losing all the money from those same people. But at least to get them elected, the corporations that pay for all the Republicans also are in the pockets of the Democrats. But the Republicans can just say, "Yeah, I did that," and not lose any voters. So
because they prefer
that out of it.
They prefer the person that lies to their face than the person that lies behind their back.
Right. Or not even lie. Everybody who says, "I didn't know he was going to do tariffs." When don't you know that?
They just didn't know what a tariff was.
You just didn't know. You decided to Google it after you voted for him. That's what happened.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And so the same people are like, yo, he's saying to how many times have every single Republican said to you, we need to lower the taxes for the rich. We got to. Because it's going to trickle down like piss on your fucking back. If you just turn around and open your mouth, it's going to be better for you. I promise you. And then 40 years later, they're saying the same thing as the tax rate has gone down from 50 to damn near 0. And they can still tell you that. That's what we're going to do when we get in. And you'll still vote for me. The Democrats they don't have that type of leverage, and they won't until they start getting money from small donors and stop taking money from PACs. I don't think you need that money to win as much as they think they do.
Not
I think
anymore.
they like that money.
Yeah.
But I don't think you need that much money to win. And I think you can beat somebody who has $1 billion of fake ads with one ad run all the time saying, I'm with you, and he's not. Here's his record, plus fuck him. And his hands are small, by the way.
And his hands are small.
Right? Like, change strategy. It's time to change. Anyway.
Yeah.
That's all. I'm out of here. I gotta go put the little one to bed. I'm always the one to leave early, but now I'm just leaving you alone.
Let me
I'm
show
sorry
you
about
something.
that.
With me.
Okay, with you. It's not a good idea.
No.
Yeah, no. Can't leave two gingers in the same room.
It ain't looking good.
I'm gonna give you guys a quick sneak preview.
Ooh,
Y'all ready?
Yeah.
Yes.
All right. So you probably know that we're running this crowdfunding campaign. We got probably like a week left, a week and a couple days. One of the backer perks includes a t-shirt. And I have not shown that design yet. And here it is. First time.
That's nice.
Hold on, let me hide that comment thing. There we go.
Yeah, that's nice.
Yeah.
One of our or actually it was a couple people collaborated on putting this together.
Yeah, that's a pretty shirt.
You got that Hardy hat going. People are gonna be like, "Where's this cappy?" Fuck that Hardy hat, baby.
I love that. I saw I saw those first few mock-ups and I couldn't decide. I liked them all. I was like, you guys decide. That is badass.
Well, that's different. That's you. I think you're talking about the
it's like 2 weeks
fight
ago.
like your ancestors. Yeah, fight like your ancestors with the black Union soldier, the USCT, U.S. Colored Troops. Somebody had asked in our comments, it was like, "Hey, I like your Patriot shirt, but do you have one for black people?" And I was like, "I will in a minute."
Yeah, that'd be dope. To be honest, that'd be dope because, and just to say something about that, one of the things I continue to tell people is, don't think the left never had a spine. It was in the 60s and 70s that the left was out like fighting people in the streets. You know, like you want to talk about LGBT people, we talk about the Stonewall riots. You know, like, look, I grew up with gay people. You know, like they mop you up. Like they were not people that you pushed around. You know, and the left has that history. It's just, to be honest with you, somebody the other day, a right-wing Republican said it. He said, why are we talking about tariffs? The last time that we did this, we lost like the majority for 60 years. They were scared, and they are scared. But the thing about that is that the left during that 60 years grew complacent. They grew complacent, like what Doug said, with just telling you what you want to hear and then not really following through with it. And people have woken up to that. I talk to a lot of people on the left, and it's hard to hear, but friends of mine and stuff that are like, why should I give a shit that Trump's in office? The left doesn't do anything when they have the power. And that sucks to hear, especially having a daughter, a wife, you know, like people that have like lost their access to healthcare, and, you know, LGBT friends, employees that are LGBT. The thing is that those people want to see you fight. They want to see the civil rights era Democrats. They don't want the 60 years of complacency because, you know, they fucked up with tariffs, you know, in the 30s. like we shouldn't be waiting around for him to mess up again. We should be holding that line the whole time.
That's the thing
I
that
think
I've mentioned that in a number of things that I've done, where I said a lot of people have somehow forgotten that those rights were earned in blood.
Yeah.
And sometimes with their lives. And people nowadays are like, I'm just going to go to this protest and hold up a sign.
Yeah.
And that is not an endorsement of going out and kicking the shit out of people. But
YouTube.
it is to say that, like, when that shit happens, don't fucking run from it.
Mm-hmm.
Because you can't avoid confrontation like that. And I tell people, run away from the agitators, but when you can't run because it's already at your doorstep,
You got to fight.
what are you going to do? Like,
Yep.
and half these same people are the same people who are like, oh, I wish it would come down to a shooting match because I'm going to fuck shit up. And it's people on the left and the right that say that shit too. And it's like,
Mm-hmm.
I've been in combat. I don't think you fucking understand
Yeah.
what you're talking about.
Yeah.
And I don't know I know some people who are like, yeah, I've been in combat and I want it, but those people are fucking insane.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah,
but you know,
there are
there
people living
people
with
out there fought for their rights, and now a lot of those rights are going away. So what the fuck are we gonna do? We're gonna people need to understand that there might come a point
Yep.
where this, you know, we can't forget how we got here. And I mean that both positively and negatively.
Yep. Yeah.
fellas.
I'm gonna end up on somebody's fucking Twitter. Look at these guys talking about violence again.
About. And if we're talking about violence, just put me back in. I'm out. Loved it, man. Good to meet
Yeah.
you, Angry Ginger.
Nice
Big
to meet you.
Sarge. Stay big. Keep Mikey safe for us.
Good to see you, Doug.
Peace out.
Later, man.
I am also going to call it because we're getting close to about the 2-hour mark. And I want to thank you for being on the show, for being on the live stream. I really appreciate your perspective on a lot of things. And just so you know, hashtag not all skinheads. I was a skinhead, but I wasn't a bonehead. I was just a generic working class guy, and then turned into a Sharps, which is skinheads against racial prejudice.
Yeah,
So,
I knew some. Yeah.
yeah. But I feel you when you're like, we're out there fighting with the skinheads. I'm like, I remember those days. It'd be like one fucking mouthy guy with little red bracers and bootlaces, and then all of a sudden 10 of his buddies have to come back him up because they can't fight for shit.
Yeah. You better put them suspenders on.
Yeah. The suspenders.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, thank you. I really appreciate you let me come on here. And, you know, I think one thing that I talk a lot with many people, specifically in YouTube, but also out just in the world and stuff, is that we got to create ecology. I talked to the pastor, Benjamin Dixon. He's a ex-TYT guy, and he does good stuff. And I say to him, I can't work your lane. I don't speak a lot about religion. I don't, I'm a secular humanist for the most part. So I don't speak the way that you can to those people. And he's a really good dude. He has a lot of atheists and stuff that follow him because he's so inclusive. And, I say to him, we all have to have our lane in who we can talk to. Because that's like, you're military. My whole family's military. My uncle was Marine. My other uncle was Navy. My aunt was Navy. My grandfather was in the Army for over 30 years. He was a lifer. My dad was Air Force. Each military branch has something that they are specifically good at, and then they overlap a little bit. Like the Navy has planes, the Army has planes. There's always a little bit of overlapping. So it's great to be able to support each other in their lane. But every one of us has to fill our lane and not be upset that those other people aren't getting in theirs. Like they're not always over there doing what they're doing. And you do something I think that's very similar to mine. And then we have people like Pastor Benjamin. And then we have, I interviewed Adam Mockler when he had like 70,000, subscribers. He has his own lane to talk to Gen Z kids, or Gen Z young men, I should say. And the way we do that, the way we create this ecology is by continuing to have these conversations and getting online and supporting each other. And that's why I shout out people on my channel. That's why I send people to other people's channels during my streams, right? Is because I'm like, go support them. It's okay. So I just want to say thank you, because I know this ain't easy right now. I know that I've gotten quite a few messages from people that are like, I'm scared. I think that Trump's going to come after people. I think it doesn't matter how small we are, that like eventually, they're like, I'm going to get snatched off the street. I have a daughter. I have a wife. I have a son. I have many people at my job that depend on me. And, I feel like I was made for this kind of stuff because of the way I grew up. I got skin so thick it was made for pain. Like I ain't the one. And like you said, I grew up around people that, like you said, you think you want to be in a fight, but anybody that's been in a fight knows what it's like to be in a fight. And unless you actually care about why you're fighting, you give up real quick. And I think that people need to know what they're fighting for. And I think they need to know that people like yourself, like myself, like many others out there, especially the big names, are putting themselves out in front of people and potentially putting themselves at risk. So thank you for everything you do, and thank you for letting me come on your show.
It was a pleasure to have you, and you can come back anytime. Just send me an email and be like, hey, I got some shit to talk about. And I'll be like, all right, let me see what I got going on, and we'll make that shit happen.
All right.
I'm going to plug the shirt one more time because I saw someone ask if they could get it. Bam.
Dude, I'm going to get that. When does it come out?
So this is the thing. You only get it for backing the crowdfunding campaign at a certain level. There's like some lower levels. Limits. I call them the economy budget. There's like a $5 thing, there's a $10 thing, whatever. And I think you got to be in that. I want to say it's either, I think it's a $50 pledge or something. I'm not 100% sure. But
is that in your Discord?
No, it's Indiegogo. The link is, if you go to the channel and look at any of those videos where I'm cosplaying General Sherman, the link is in there. It's
nice.
It's Indiegogo. Let's talk about the Civil War. That's the only. They will never be in the store. As much as I want to, can't do it.
Yeah,
gotta leave that specifically for that.
One other thing too, since you like the Civil War, I just interviewed Jeffrey Boutwell. He is a descendant of George Boutwell, who was, I think he is Internal Revenue for U.S. Grant. And I forgot what he was for Abraham Lincoln. But he's one of the guys that started the original GOP, the Republican Party that's now the Progressive Party, as they switched, right?
You threw that in there. That's good.
Yeah. But if you ever want to check out, Jeffrey Boutwell, he's an MIT professor. And we talked about his book. We talk a lot about Civil War because I'm a big U.S. Grant fan. So if you ever want to check out
his birthday's coming up.
Yeah.
I'm making a video for it.
Nice. I'll check that out. I was looking at your Confederate ones. I like that. I love the fact, let me say one more thing, is that I love the fact that you guys are trying to take back, the flag, the patriotism, all of that stuff. And that's another thing I think left-wing people need to get over. And that is, I see your video where you say, I'm going to make videos about Confederates. And the first thing I hear in my head is that screaming liberal that's like, why are we making videos about these people? Like, we're just, and it's like, calm the fuck down. The dude's literally calling out these Confederates for the shit that they did. Give the video 10 seconds, brother. Like, sit down, get yourself some popcorn, take a Xanax, whatever the fuck you need to do. But chill out and give the dude a moment to talk about, and let him get into his shtick. And so I'm going to check out some of those Confederate videos. Those look dope.
I'm tanking my subscribers, by the way. It's like the numbers are going down. They're like, I had a comment the other day, and I'm not going to put the dude on blast, but he's like, what the fuck is this? Why are we not talking about resistance? And I'm like,
yeah, exactly.
I've covered this in like 30 fucking videos. Why I'm not? I can talk about more than one thing. Like,
Yeah.
where were you during the Q&A 3 months ago when I was like, I have a video on Pornhub, or like, one time I shit in this guy's porta potty and he was a general. And they didn't have shit to say then.
No, and that's me
And
too.
then suddenly I'm like, I'm wearing this big blue woolen suit, and I'll have you know, where I live, it is hot as in that thing.
I'm doing this for the people.
Exactly. I'm suffering for you.
100%, man. People, I like to do comedy, and so I make things that are jokes, and people come on and they're like, "Why aren't you angry? You're supposed to be fighting." And I'm like, bro, balance. This is something I keep telling my subscribers. Don't let them take away your happiness.
Exactly.
Don't let them take it away.
Let them terrify you 24/7. Be happy about something. I don't care what it is. Be happy about My Little Pony, or my fucking Confederate video, or not Confederate video. But
yeah, pet your cat. Like, enjoy this life. It goes at the same pace either way, and you can either just be angry all the time, or you can be angry at the right time. And for those of us that have lived through adversity, that have been in combat, or have lived, in a real tough place, we know that, like, you got to take your happiness where you find it. And then when it's time to handle shit, when it's time to be ready, like, that's when you get ready. And the calm fighter, the one that knows how to harness that anger and knows how to still make good decisions, that's the fighter that wins. It's not the one that's fucking raging around, yelling at people and acting out. It's the person that is capable of understanding when it's the right time. So, yeah.
Bam. That's a good closeout. I can't even top that. All right. I'm going to go ahead and end the stream. Y'all be safe. Heads on a swivel, stay frosty, etc., etc. But also, go have some fun and laugh at something. It don't gotta be me, because I'm not funny. But go find something. Go watch Christopher Titus.
There you go.
All right, y'all. Peace out. 2 claps and a Rick.
Woo!